Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good today. Just out in the tackle room a little bit right now. Just been super busy today, working, doing a lot of stuff we got going on with Fish at the moment. Getting ready for one of our podcasts tonight, and got a lot of cool stuff coming up with some video. Been working on that a lot. Doing some stuff for Bridgeford, getting ready for the next tournament, taking care of kids. It's just a super busy time right now. But hey, just wanted to take a few minutes with the latest video I wanted to put out. And this fall, I'm going to start doing some extensive, comprehensive YouTube tutorials on jig fishing. And specifically, here pretty quick, I'm going to do a real comprehensive, in-depth, detail tutorial on finesse jigs. Everything about them, trailer setups, colors. It's just going to be a real comprehensive look at finesse jigs, which is one of my favorite baits to fish. But the little thing I wanted to do today is I want to talk about jig trailers. And when I'm talking about the trailers right now, I'm talking about, they can be finesse, but they can be finesse or regular jigs. But just basically a generic look at jig trailers to help simplify your approach to it. And I've fished jigs ever since I've been fishing. I mean, that's what we started here back in Table Rock in the late 1970s. That's all we fished, was like live river jigs with pork frogs on them. It's really what I learned to bass fish with is jigs. And most probably 80% of the tournaments that I've won or come close to winning, a jig has played a huge part in it. So I've had a lot of experience as far as learning to understand the best trailers to use on jig under which certain situations. And the bit I wanted to do today is I'm not going to go into a lot of detail as far as colors and matching stuff up like that, but I want to go into my basic jig trailer setup and the type of trailers that I use and why, and it'll help you simplify this. It'll help you simplify your approach to jig trailers, because a lot of people get intimidated with it. So anyway, here's my 4 main trailers that I use. What are you doing, Tyne? Huh? You want some more? Okay, take it outside. Okay, here's the 4 basic jig trailers that I use for probably 90% of my jig fishing. And what they are is the Zoom Speed Craw, the Zoom Super Chunk Junior, the Super Chunk, and the Big Salty Chunk. And I'm guessing, like I said, at least 90% of the time, this is my jig selection that I use. And I sort of want to explain each one of them and why I choose them under which situations. Okay, the main thing I basically want to show here is not really, like the colors to use and, stuff like that, but I want to show you when I choose each one of these trailers as far as the situation goes. And when you're talking about jig trailers, there's a lot of different variables that go with that. The variables are endless. They include water temperature, water clarity, the water depth you're fishing, the type of cover you're fishing, and also the sort of what the lake is known for producing as far as size of fish and types of fish. If you're fishing largemouth exclusive lake, or if you've got a mixed species, the place is known to be tough, or if it's got big fish in it. So all this plays into it. So, and the first one I want to show you is basically my favorite, which is the Zoom Big Salty Chunk. It's like the old pork frog style. And this is like, I have caught more quality fish probably on this setup than I have anyone else. And there's different modifications. There's a bunch of stuff I can show you as far as how you can tweak these things and modifications that you can do with it. But basically, the Big Salty Chunk is just like the old pork frog style. You're just threading it, back over the hook, just like that. It's a big, bulky profile. And one of the things about threading the jigs on this is I see a lot of people threading this particular chunk, upside down. They thread it like that. And that is not the way you want to thread it. You want to thread it where, the flat part, angled part is down like that. It just gives the bait a better fall. But this particular situation, I like this setup in 2 different scenarios. I like it during the pre-spawn, when that water temperature, say like in the mid 50s, something like that. when the bass are holding around shallow water cover, whether it be flooded cover or non-flooded cover, just that mid 50s degree range when you have water visibilities that are anywhere between 6 inches and 3 feet. And I also like this combination if I'm fishing in the heat of the summer in super shallow water, around dirty water cover. If I'm fishing like in muddy water, river systems in the middle of the summertime, a lot of times I'll use a bigger size, like a 3/4 ounce jig with the big salty chunk on there, and it seems to generate strikes. Okay, the next one, which is similar to this, is the super chunk. And this is a setup, I see a lot of people using the super chunk a lot more than the big salty chunk. And there's two different ways you can thread this particular one on. You can either thread it, just like you would the pork frog. And when you do this, it's a really big bait for the bass. It's probably one of the biggest jig profiles that you can make. I thread it like this if I'm fishing lakes that are known to have big fish in it. Here again, I like it during the pre-spawn of the year. Sometimes I like this setup if the cover that I'm fishing is a lot deeper than normal. Say I'm fishing flooded bushes that are in 6 to 8 foot of water, or I'm fishing laydowns that are next to deep water. If I'm fishing a little bit deeper water, a lot of times I like this profile here for it, particularly if the lake is known for bass over 4 pounds. Now, probably the most popular setup for jig fishing is a lot of people use, this same super chunk, but they thread it on like they would a worm. And what happens with here, it gives the bait a completely different profile. You still got the large trailer, but it takes the size of the bait down in length, probably close to 2 inches, 1.5 inches or 2 inches. And this is probably one of the most versatile setups that you have right here. It's a nice compact jig, but also it's a big bulky jig, and it'll get quality strikes. You can put it in tighter cover. And again, I'll use this same setup under the same situation, pre-spawn situation, deeper cover, that type of stuff, or the middle of summer with heavier jigs. But I go to the smaller profile and I thread it on if the lake maybe is not known for the quality big fish, and the bite's a little bit tougher. I'll go with this particular one. Now the next one is the same super chunk, but it's a super chunk junior. And this particular super chunk junior, you can see the different size comparison on it. This is a finesse trailer. A lot of people consider it a finesse trailer. I use this a lot on my finesse jigs, which we'll talk about in a later video. And when I'm using the super chunk junior, the small trailer, I'm never threading it on like a frog. I'm always threading it. I'm never putting it on like a pork frog. I'm always threading it on, because when I'm using this trailer, I'm after the real small, compact look with it. And as you can see, when you use this trailer here, it makes the bait even a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller diminutive profile on it. And I'll use this situation if I'm fishing a jig that's a situation where I've got 3 different species in the lake, where the fishing is a little bit tougher. I'm fishing this jig a lot more in the fall time of the year and in the post-spawn when the bite's a little bit tougher. And it's one of my favorite setups. I like to use this small trailer anytime I'm pitching a jig, like just on rocky banks or like bare pieces of cover, not necessarily around objects. It's a real good one. And finally, we'll talk about the speed craw. Now the last 3 trailers I talked to you, they don't have any curly legs. They've got straight tails. They don't have any action. But the speed craw, you got the action of the tail, and sometimes you want that. Most of the time when I'm fishing jigs, I don't like the curly tails. I like a chunk type trailer that does not wiggle on there. But sometimes, say if you're fishing in really hot water, or if you're fishing in clean water a lot of times, or if you're fishing a jig where you're not pulling it and it's more of a vertical fall, a lot of times I like the speed craw with the curly tails on it. And again, when I'm using the speed craw, I'm totally threading it on. Makes a small compact bait with it, and I've got the skirt a little bit longer. But what this does is the legs will slow the fall of the jig down. It creates a drag on it, so it'll make your bait fall slower. And the good thing about when you're fishing the curly-tailed jig is you can not only work it like a regular jig, but you can also swim it. This is the same trailer I use a lot for my swim jigs, so it's pretty versatile with that. But prime example where I'd use the speed craw would be if I'm pitching a jig to rocky banks or bluff banks or that type of stuff. I find that the small curly tail, when you're pitching it to clean banks, will get a lot more strikes than a non-curly tail. And I think maybe because they're not ambushing off a piece of cover and they can see the bait from a farther distance, and the curly tails will help attract the strike too. Also, this is a great trailer to use around boat docks. If I'm fishing around boat docks, particularly if the water temperature is like between 70 and 80 degrees, I find like I get a lot more bites with the curly tails, and particularly if you have a lake that's got a lot of spotted bass, they seem to like this. But anyway, that's a real generic overview of the trailers that I use. Like I said, I'm getting ready to do an extensive jig series. I'm going to go into colors. I'm going to go into how to match different sizes in different seasons, jig modifications, trailer modifications, type of line, rod, and everything to use, because there's a lot to it. And the first thing I'm going to do is the comprehensive finesse jig series, because I'm going to guess that jigs, to me, are the second most complex bait to fish as far as the variables that can basically come together to create a jig, only second to jerkbait fishing. So there's a lot to it. I'm going to try to do a sort of a combination of simplifying this approach, yet giving you a comprehensive understanding of the potential that it has, because jig fishing is critical. If you're going to be a good angler, there's nothing better than jigs to catch quality fish day in and day out. So anyway, I'll keep you guys updated when I'm going to come out with these other videos with it. Thanks again for subscribing. Appreciate you guys' time taken to watch these videos. I really do. And we'll be back soon with another one. See you.